Before we introduce our final selection, I'd like to tell you a short story about a very special educator who taught music in this school for 29 years, beginning in 1959, and that teacher's name is Mr. Richard Hart. Following his military service as a trombonist in the United States Army Band, stationed in Berlin, Germany during the Korean War, Mr. Hart sent a letter to Clarence Johnson. Now, Mr. Johnson, you might know that name. He's the administrator, the principal at the time, who this auditorium is now named after. And Mr. Hart's letter of inquiry led to an interview and an eventual hire as an assistant choral director to Miss Barbara Barnes. The number of students singing in the choir at that time was increasing, and Mr. Johnson knew that Miss Barnes was going to need some assistance. And when Mr. Hart joined the faculty, the number of musicians in choir continued to expand to over 500. When South High opened in the 1960s, Barbara Barnes transitioned to the new campus, and Mr. Hart stayed here at the new North High School. During his tenure, Mr. Hart produced 25 different Broadway musicals and operettas. By the way, he recently told me that The Music Man was his favorite one, which is interesting since we're about to stage it again in March of 2020. And Mr. Hart was largely responsible for establishing the tradition of the choir and the band singing Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, which you had an opportunity to hear that tradition continuing earlier this evening in the program. When Mr. Hart retired in 1988, he couldn't turn off music. He and his family opened Hart Music, a music store in Sandwich, Illinois, and until just recently, Mr. Hart served as the conductor of the Indian Valley Community Band. Now, it has been 60 years since Mr. Hart joined the faculty of this school in 1959. We are incredibly honored to have Mr. Hart and his wife Crystal in attendance this evening. And on behalf of the music faculty and the students performing tonight, I would like to say, Mr. Hart, thank you for building, over the span of 3 decades, the vibrant music program that our current students and families still enjoy to this day. Your passion for the arts and your vision for excellence are strong pillars of our school's foundation. Welcome home. Please stand and accept our thanks. Certain experiences in a school setting connect people and together over time. Here in Downers Grove, the final selection will perform as one of those longitudinal connections. All around the world, choristers are gathering to lend their voices to the venerable holiday tradition that is the Hallelujah Chorus. We've done some extensive research, and we believe the first performance of Handel's Hallelujah Chorus in District 99 occurred on this site in 1929, making this a tradition that has now spanned more than 9 decades. When South High opened in 1964, this tradition expanded to include annual performances at both campuses. Now, it's been 278 years since Handel composed Messiah, yet audiences consistently gathered to engage with this English language Baroque-era oratorio. Handel's use of memorable tunes and remarkable text painting throughout the work provides vivid imagery and emotional depth. Performing this piece is like coming back to a favorite book or a poem. You keep reading it and finding something unexpected, and it's artistically meaningful every time. The work has never had to be rediscovered because it has never left the repertoire. The phenomenon of this composition and its inherent traditions are not unique to Downers Grove. Audiences all over the world customarily stand when they hear the first sounds float through the concert hall. Scholars speculate this might have been because King George II stood at an early chorus production in London. Once we begin the Hallelujah, we invite you to stand as you're able, should the holiday spirit move you to do so. Thank you again for being a part of our audience this evening at North High School. We extend to you the warmest greetings of the season and a very pleasant new year. Thank you.